A deeply disturbing new report published in the last hour about Graham Plattner is shaking up the crucial U.S. Senate race in Maine. Politico has new bombshell reporting from a woman who dated Graham Plattner, who says Plattner forced her to have sex with him nearly 5 years ago, despite her repeated objections. From that reporting, the woman, a 41-year-old Maine resident named Jenny Rasico, detailed the alleged incident to Politico in 3 interviews over the course of the past 2 weeks. Politico also spoke with a man Rasico dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents, including emails between her and her therapist and messages between Rasico and an acquaintance whom she warned against getting involved with Plattner years before he ran for office. Rasico said she had an on and off again relationship with Plattner, who is now the Democratic Senate nominee in Maine, for more than 2 years before he entered her rural Maine home uninvited one night in late 2021, deeply intoxicated, and he forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. Plattner has denied the allegations, telling Politico, quote, these allegations are troubling, serious, and false. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically untrue. Graham Plattner released a video just moments ago in which he says he's taking time to reflect on a path forward. Take a listen.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated, and we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
I want to bring into this conversation MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell and host of the Fast Politics podcast, contributing writer for the New York Times, Molly Jong-Fast. Also with us, my friend and colleague, MS Now anchor and correspondent Ayman Mohyeldin. It is great to have all of you guys here with me. I want to start with you, Michael, to break down what we know at this point about this reporting. And I know that you're out to your sources on the Hill. Tell me what you expect to hear or what you might already be hearing from them as they process these allegations from Politico.
Yeah, serious allegations from Politico. The latest shoe to drop when we talk about the controversies that have been dogging Graham Plattner's candidacy and campaign. As you laid out, this is an allegation involving a woman who said that she met Graham Plattner back in 2019 when they met on a dating app. The alleged assault happened in 2021. Graham Plattner had said he wanted to come over and see her. They were in a consensual relationship at that point. She said she was not in the mood, but Graham Plattner then let himself into her home, walked up her stairs, found her laying on a couch. He then got on top of this woman, and she had said, please get off me. She didn't. She was not interested in engaging at that moment. She also says that he smelled of alcohol. She then removed herself from the room and went towards her bedroom with Graham Plattner following her. And then this woman tells Politico that he, at that point, forced her to have sex. Afterwards, he had fallen asleep, and in the next morning, he had left her home. Again, these allegations happening in 2019. We are still waiting for reaction from some of Graham Plattner's top supporters up on Capitol Hill, of which he has many. Graham Plattner, as you just played, denying these allegations, but notably saying that he's going to figure out how to move forward. The big date that we should all be paying attention to right now is July 13th. According to Maine law, candidates have until the second Monday in July, which is, again, a week from today, July 13th, where they can still remove themselves from the ballot when they can drop out, but the party can then nominate a replacement to be the standard bearer for that party. Notably, Janet Mills has still been on the ballot throughout this entire time. She got 20%, nearly 20% of the vote during that Democratic primary. Still a substantial amount of percent for somebody who wasn't even running but was still on the ballot. So certainly with Graham Plattner saying we're going to assess how to move forward, drawing a lot of eyeballs in terms of that July 13th date. But again, right now, no indication of how he plans to handle this. And we are still waiting to hear from some of his top supporters up on Capitol Hill.
Eamon, what did you make of that video from Graham Plattner? Because while he's denying these allegations, he's also, interestingly, at one point in the video, he starts to speak in past tense, as though he's about to, or may potentially in the minutes, hours, days, suspend this campaign.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. And I think that Graham Plattner right now certainly has a credibility problem. And a lot of that has to do with what he says in previous statements when allegations come forward. He'll come forward and say, there's nothing else to come out, only for something else to come out. And that makes it harder and harder for his allies to politically defend him. And you're talking about the video that he just made. There's a few elements there that I thought were important. One, the part that he says, I'm going to reflect on the way forward, and to Michael's point about what that might mean politically for him. But towards the end of that statement, he also adds the part about how many voters voted for him the most in Maine's history, and the fact that he does not want to betray the people of Maine who voted for him. And he says they've stood by him, and he's not going to betray them. So again, it's a bit of an open-ended statement. What does that mean? Is he going to do potentially, in the eyes of many, the right thing of stepping aside and keeping the door open for somebody else? Does that mean he's going to stay in this race and fight these allegations? But to Michael's point, and to the point that Politico makes, these are different allegations, and for a few reasons. One, the way Politico described it, saying he has not previously been accused of sexual assault, I think is a different type of threshold in terms of allegations. Although he's been dogged by other allegations of conduct and misconduct with women, the way it is characterized by Politico is that this is the first time he is being accused of sexual assault. But also the other important part in this is the receipts that this woman has.
Yeah.
The fact that she had told other people about an interaction with Graham Plattner that made her extremely uncomfortable and, according to Politico, crosses that threshold. That is something that I think we're seeing for the first time that gives so much more credibility to her story and to her allegations, even if Graham Plattner is denying them. If it's one thing that we have, talked about through the Me Too era is believe women, and certainly women who have told other people about their experiences, I think crosses a threshold that I think is going to put a lot of intense pressure on Graham Plattner's campaign, but also on his allies who have stood by him throughout previous allegations.
To that comment about the sort of post-Me Too era and the debate that sort of happened in the Democratic Party after this, the series of allegations around Graham Plattner, part of, I think, what made it complicated for some Democrats to fully believe the woman who was at the center of the last round was that she was associated with right-wing politics. But this woman, I want to read part of what's out here. One of the reasons, she says to Politico, I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics. So she is saying, I actually agree with Graham Plattner, his positions, his politics. She's clearly more on the left, but not supporting him as a person. I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have a whole scope of who he is as a person. Molly, I want your take on what we're hearing in this new report from Politico, but also the fallout that you're expecting now as Democrats try to sort through what they need to do on behalf of the voters, the American people, because of this.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's one thing to have to have this first tranche. Remember, there was an earlier group of women, and now this is yet another tranche of allegations. And I think that when you look at the polling on this, I just was looking at a poll that said 75% of people said that if there were more allegations, he should drop out. And I think this constant stream, and even you see the polling for him since the last batch of allegations, his numbers have gone down. I do think, look, I'm baffled that the vetting process for this candidate, number one. I mean, this is just, the fact that they're just constant, allegations, I think really is a sign that there just was not proper vetting here. And, you may, again, align with him politically, but the truth is, this is not a candidate who is ready for prime time on any stretch of the imagination. And Democrats have, there's a feeling in the party that candidates like this are not for the party. And, there has been a backlash to Me Too, but it has not been like this. The other thing I would say is that clearly this is a person who, at least from these allegations, that when drinking does not remember their behavior. That's what all these allegations say. So another reason why, I don't know how we got here, but this 17th, July 13th deadline seems to be key. And I think you see a person who is really coming forward when there's still time for him to drop out, which I think is also shows that there's some feeling of this was just what she had to do. And the fact that there's so much on the women here when clearly this is, multiple women, multiple allegations is just very upsetting.